Hey friends, welcome back to Am I Really Bald YouTube channel. So I'm trying something new on the YouTube channel. I'm going to start reading letters of people who want to share their story but don't want to show their face. I'm going to read letters here on the YouTube channel and on the podcast and probably do a little write-up in my blog. So if you Google Am I Really Bald all over social media, you'll find me. I'll try to leave the links in the comments. Sometimes I forget. I'm kind of old school, so I'm just kind of getting used to doing this YouTube thing on a consistent basis. But selfishly, I want to be able to tell my story, tell other people's stories, and hopefully it resonates with someone. And so if you're interested in having your story told, send me a message, comment on this video, or send me a message at Am I Really Bald on Instagram. Just send me a DM. I'm inviting people also to speak on the podcast, but several people were like, I want my story to be told, but I don't want my voice to be recognized. So I decided to say, how about if you send me a letter and I can read it anonymously? And I doubt very seriously that your family will know who it is. We all have similar stories and we don't realize it until we hear it read back or told back to us. And then we get this aha moment and the light bulb goes off. Everyone has a story. I know I have stories that can resonate with everyone from every part of my life, from teenager to up to now. So the stories that I'm reading are one for people to write down and release what's inside, the stories that they haven't been able to tell. That's the first thing that's happening. They're releasing the baggage. And then the second part of it is someone else is going to hear your story and it's going to help them. So I'm going to start off with the first letter. Again, it's anonymous and it's called Surviving Parental Narcissism. Okay, forgive me if I kind of, you know, get, tongue twisted or whatever. And it's a little bit long. So, stay with me if you can. I really like this letter. It made me cry. I already taped it on the podcast. And it's just something that people can relate to. Our parents are supposed to love us, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And what I will say is if you do have children and you've been through some stuff, I heard a quote once and I've lived every bit of my 28 and three-quarter years as a parent by that quote. Be the parent that your parent wasn't. Even if your parent thinks that they were the best parent, and even if you turn around and think you were the best parent, I did everything opposite of how I was raised, and hopefully my children appreciate that. So here's this surviving parental narcissism. Okay, it says, my story begins when I was 8 years old. That was the first time I took care of my mom when she had pneumonia, essentially making me her caregiver. That was the beginning. Throughout my childhood, I would become her caregiver when she needed it. Cleaning the house by myself by the time I was 10, doing all the laundry and learning to cook. My mother was a single parent who divorced my dad when I was 5. My mom was a hard worker, working 2 to 3 jobs constantly to make ends meet. My brother and I were left alone beginning when he was 13 and I was 11. I did most of the housework because my mom worked so much and my brother was an angry teenager who fought with me daily, many times ending in physical confrontations with me always on the losing end. I learned early that if I tried to keep the house clean, behaved, made good grades, and smiled a lot, it kept her happy. We were actually very close during my childhood years, and she was an affectionate mother. I was not, however, allowed to ever be angry with her. It didn't matter what she said or did that bothered me or hurt my feelings. If I showed it, I got in trouble and it became something I had done wrong. So I learned to stuff my anger and avoid all confrontations. That's a dangerous setup emotionally for a child. She remarried when I was 14 to a violent man. He hid that detail until they were married. And then that's when the problems began. 2 weeks into the marriage, my mom wanted to leave, and it was 5 long years that she finally did. The only thing I want to say about him is that it was discovered during the marriage that he suffered from bipolar disorder and refused to take medication. He was ex-military and a therapist. There were so many secrets in my house, it was ridiculous. During that time, my mother began to have a lot of medical issues. She had several surgeries in 1 year period and became unable to work. I became her protector during confrontations with her husband. When he screamed in her face, I got between them. Also during this time, my brother began to drink heavily and do drugs. So my mom locked him out of the house one night, forcing him to go live with my dad. I never considered going to live with my dad to get away from the crazy in the house because I needed to be there to protect her. She finally divorced him while I was away in my freshman year in college. Thank God. Within the same year, my mom became totally disabled and moved in with her dad, my grandfather, to take care of him. I graduated college and got my degree and began a career in mental health. How appropriate, right? I think the true reason I got my degree in psychology was because I wanted to know what was wrong with everyone, especially me. After my mom moved in with my grandfather, I went some weekends to take care of both of them. Because, as I said, my mom was already disabled and my grandfather was around 80 and legally blind. My mom finally moved out into an apartment and my grandfather went into assisted living, then passed away. I got married the year before to a wonderful man who I'm still married to today, 25 years later. This is where the crucial part of my story begins. When I married, my husband became my priority. Then in 2 years, I had a baby, the love of our lives, and I think my mother realized she was no longer my first priority. That's when she became demanding, using her words carefully, making sure to let me know I was neglecting her, using guilt like a weapon. As she aged, she had more and more medical issues, the most prominent being chronic pain. I know her pain was legitimate because she had the medical diagnosis to back it up. She did suffer physically quite a bit, but I think she also used her problems to her advantage. For the last 20 years, I made sure to live close to her so that I could take her to doctor's visits, help her financially, fix her meals, and on and on. We pretty much worked our lives around being available to our parents, which is good, but she took it to another level with me. She never hesitated to call me for any reason, and she felt it her right to help me solve all her problems. I know this because she told me. She became increasingly mean, demanding, and sarcastic towards me. She would make doctor's appointments and demand that I take her that day, no matter what I had going on, because didn't I want her to have the best medical care possible? Didn't she deserve to have the right doctors solve her problems? This went on for years. I have no idea how many doctors and surgeries I took her to. At one point, she fell and shattered her hip. I felt there was no choice but to move her in with us. Huge mistake. Her demands increased, and I felt like I wanted to die just to be out from under her control. I never had a plan. It was not suicidal, just completely miserable. Then I realized what I really wanted was for her to die. When I had that thought, I knew I had to be the worst human being on the planet. I was at my rock bottom emotionally. I constantly felt like she had a chokehold on me. My husband helped me realize I was just burned out to the extreme. She lived with us for 3 months while she recovered from hip surgery. When I asked her to move out into her own apartment, she told me I was kicking her to the curb. And she punished me emotionally for the next 2, 3 years, but I still moved her out. I could no longer deal with living with her, and I feared she would completely ruin her relationship with her only grandchild, my son, with her behavior. This was the one time I had to stand my ground for the sake of my family. It was extremely hard to stand up to her because she had controlled me my whole life. Anytime that I did call her on her bad behavior, she turned it around and on me and made the situation my fault. Remember how I wasn't allowed to be angry with her or correct her? It was easier to take it instead of fight it because it would have been war. Another reason I didn't unload on her constantly was because I had a strong faith for many years, and my desire to honor my mother was greater than my desire to let her have it. And man, did I want to let her have it several times. That right there is powerful because she said her desire to honor her mother was greater than her desire to let her have it. That's love. My husband finally pointed out gently what she was doing to me. He was tired of seeing me in a terrible constant cycle of exhaustion and hurt. When he helped me realize what was going on, I began to educate myself about the dynamic of our relationship. I had a degree, so I should have known, but was too close to the situation to realize what she was doing to me. Everything she said or did was all about her. When I took a step back and looked at her more objectively, I began to see her behaviors for what they were. She was incredibly narcissistic. Everything about her, and that's capitalized. An example, she had a nurse's aide that came to her house to help her every week. And at some point, sometime or another, according to my mother, they were out to get her, or they were talking about her behind her back, or they were jealous of her in some way. Whatever the drama was, she was at the center of it, and she could tell me exactly what was wrong with everyone. She loved to diagnose others' problems. It was extremely, if the words extremely self absorbed or selfish or even very spoiled ring a bell with a relationship you are in, please do some research on narcissism for yourself. What I want listeners to understand is that narcissism is a horrible thing to deal with. No, it's not physical abuse. The narcissist doesn't have to lay a hand on you. Sometimes that does happen, I realize, because they already have control over you and your emotions. The narcissist makes you feel like you're going crazy because they are the thing if you let it. During my mother's time in nursing home care, she became unable to walk and she was bedridden the last full year. I will say she softened a lot with me and became very nurturing and much kinder to me. I think she realized all of the times I could have turned my back on her and walked away, but I didn't. This is the part I like. Again, my desire to honor my mother was stronger than the desire to walk away. She still triggered me a few times those last couple of years, but my response was better, and her behavior didn't eat me alive from the inside out like it used to. My mother made a career out of taking care of herself on a daily basis. She had a survival instinct like I had never seen before. She was disabled for 30 years of her life, and her job was taking care of her health every day. She was diabetic, had heart disease, scoliosis, degenerative disc disease, kidney disease, and a long list of other issues. She had around 60 surgeries throughout her life. My mother died on August 20, sorry, my mother died August of 2019. She was 80. I had power of attorney for her. I placed her in hospice care for 3 weeks before she passed at the urging of the nursing home. When she died, I was in the room holding her hand. I was still left with so many questions. Did I care for her enough? Did I do my best to take care of her? Should I have placed her in hospice care? Because she would have fought for life to the very end and would have wanted to take all of her meds to keep her going until then. I still hadn't learned not to question myself and my motives. Through my grief process, I came to realize I did my very best for my mom. From the time I was a child until the time she took her last breath. As I mentioned before, I have a solid faith, and this is what I know. I love my mother and I gave her my best, even when she didn't deserve it. That is what honoring your mother and father means. That's powerful. Again, I say that is what honoring your mother and father means. Would I do it again? Without hesitation, yes. I hope I would learn better emotional responses. Sooner, though. God has been working on me for many years, and throughout this lifetime with my mother, I have learned patience, perseverance, long suffering, compassion, and unconditional love. For those lessons, I am grateful. And with God's help, and with the help of God's healing hand, my wonderful husband, and our son, I am healing. I can honestly say I love my mom. Okay, I love that letter. The person who sent me that letter put everything that they had on paper, but I'm pretty sure it took everything that they had to write that. And hopefully, the healing process is starting for them. I was healing just from reading that. I have some similar experiences, not as bad. Mine is more of a different nature in terms of abuse, but I believe that I can relate, and I believe that anyone else can relate. So if you have ever had an experience in your lifetime with a narcissist, or if you're still dealing with some narcissist situation, please seek help. There are plenty of people who can help you. Remember, it's not about you, it's about the person. And you have to figure out when you're ready to break away from that. It's okay to walk away. We do love our mother and we do love our father, but the word doesn't tell us to be abused and to take all the crap that they throw on us, especially once we're adults. The thing is, oftentimes when our parents are raising us, they forget that eventually we probably have to take care of them. And I know people who are going through the similar things right now where they, yes, are taking care of their parents. And I would gladly do it with no hesitation. I'm the oldest child. I would take care of my parents even after some things that I've been through. And I think that is what honoring your parents is about. But if you feel like you can't do it, you have to figure out at what point you maybe need to walk away or even just take a break. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to live your life, and it's okay to be okay with living your life. So if you have a story to tell and you want me to read it for you, or if you want to come on the podcast, send me a message here in the comments. You can send me a message on Am I Really Bald on Instagram or even on Facebook. I totally thank you for watching. Hopefully this has healed someone and has touched someone in a special way. I know it did for me. I was holding back tears the whole time. So I thank you, friends, for watching, and I appreciate you so much. Take care. I can't ever get